For those of you who know me, my name's Lori. For those of you who don't know me, I'm still Lori. Um, Emily and I were just talking that my son just turned 21. I had him when I was a postdoc, so he's older than dirt. I'm older than dirt, but my son was a postdoc, and he was very much a hockey player growing up. So he played hockey since he was in second grade. And last night, the Washington Capitals have a new rookie who came out. His name is Cole Hudson, and my son has actually played against him in his hockey career. And it's really crazy to think about kids that my kid played against in hockey now are in the NHL. It's flabbergasting to me. So, all right, looks like Emily, we're pretty good, right?
Yep, I think we're good.
Good. All right, I will start then. Anjali, I have no idea how to do your hand.
Oh, undid hand, yep.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, so we're going to talk about job offers. I know it's a little early. From one of the things we've been hearing a little bit from the this cycle, it's a little early for job offers, but they should be coming soonish. And so we wanted to make sure you were all prepared if you're going to get a faculty job offer. So today we're going to cover faculty job offers. If you want to learn more about industry job offers or anything else job offers, that is a separate talk. It's similar but different. This one is really going to focus on for those of you who want to be faculty members. And the stuff we are going to cover, hey, Emily, can you put the link to forms in the chat?
Yes, I can.
Emily and I have been thinking a lot about today, gathering just a little bit of data about you, why you're here, and your thoughts on the market this year. So take a couple of seconds to fill out our quick survey of fun. And our talk today will cover about 3 separate components. It'll talk about the typical components of a job offer for faculty positions. We'll talk about what you can negotiate and what you can't negotiate and how to get more information on how to negotiate those things. And then we'll also talk about, I'll give you some words and some scripts in order to accept or deny different offers. So take a moment, finish up that survey. We'll give you until 2:04 to do our survey of doom. Then Emily, do I have to stop sharing in order for you to share?
Yes, so we'll just swap sharing briefly once we get some responses in.
All right.
Got 3 so far.
I'll let you guys finish the survey. I'll talk about hockey more.
Yeah, perfect.
No, it won't. Nervous.
All right.
Oh, first time applying, so no idea. Yeah, that makes sense. Very competitive, yep. Brutal and horrible. That sounds lovely.
It's a strong language, yep.
Right? I mean, we want this. Okay, so number of applications.
Yep, this is number of applications.
70, 60, 10, 15. So I feel like we got 2 groups of people. The people at about 2 to 15 and the people at 70 plus.
The 27, that's in the middle.
We haven't quite figured out like the magic yet, because we've definitely have seen in some of the data we've collected over the past couple of days that people who did 90 are getting 1 offer and people who are doing 5 are getting 1 offer. So there's no like exact ratio of, if you do this many, you probably will get this many offers. So there's no ratio in that, but that helps us kind of understand. All right. What we got next, Emily?
First round interviews. Are there ones you completed or ones you have coming up? That's a lot.
Oh, gravy. That's amazing.
Most are in single digits. That makes sense.
Digits, which is pretty normal. Emily, in that data you've been collecting over the years, what was the ratio of approximately, do you remember?
Of like number of applications to interviews?
Yeah.
Yeah, roughly 10 to 20%.
Okay. Okay. And
And
then
then
on-site
on-site
interviews, zeros.
interviews
Yeah.
to 11.
Has anyone, some of you
Most
are
1 to
probably still
3.
waiting too, right?
Yep.
Still waiting a little bit. Okay, cool. That's really helpful, everyone. We're all about data because meh, meh. I like that.
Lots
Meh.
of
It's a
meh. Yep.
lottery.
So there you go. That's the data.
Yeah, great. Okay. I'm gonna, oh, she sent it back to me.
I
Okay,
sent it
what do
back
I
to
do
you.
now?
It's all you
Hold on.
know.
Where'd my
Reshare.
phone? Reshare.
Oh, we got a hockey fan in the comments.
Oh, do we? Yay, go hockey. I love hockey. Oh yeah, we should have put the majors in there next time. Okay. So here's some trends that Emily and I have been seeing. So Emily and I did a lot of looking into the market over the past couple of days. It's been a tough market this year. I think that's one of the things we heard a lot. And we can also see that in your comments of how do you feel about the market. It is not as difficult as the previous cycle is what we have seen, but it is still a really tough market. Things tended to be posted later. Everyone was still worried about the NIH budget back in the fall. So positions got posted a little bit late. And that means everything is a little bit more delayed. And so I anticipate in this cycle that offers and interviews will still be much later than they have in previous years. We do know that there are some schools that are still on hiring freezes. And so some of the places that even had positions open, it seems many of you put applications in and then they told you, well, the dean is still left us on a hiring freeze. And so we're actually not moving forward with all the applicants. So we have seen that happen a little bit this year as well. And we know that that is coming. We have definitely seen an increase in the pressure to accept a position very quickly. So if they are going to make you an offer, they want to know within a week whether or not you're going to accept it, which puts a lot of pressure on you if you have potentially additional interviews that are still outstanding. There are ways around it, but they won't always give you all the time you want to make critical decisions. So if you end up in that particular boat, give us a call. We've worked a lot with these types of things and we have a couple of strategies that tend to work. But we do know that there is a lot of pressure to accept positions very quickly. A couple of new things that we've seen on the market over the past couple of years is that the department chair wants to do all the negotiations with you before a written offer is made. And they will only then send it up to the dean if you fully agree. So they don't want to give you a written offer for you then to negotiate on that written offer. Everything has to be done before the written offer. That one makes a lot of us nervous because you really haven't seen it in writing before you have agreed to take the position. You do all your negotiations, you say, yes, I'll take this position, but you never have seen it fully in writing. And now you're just hoping that they put everything in writing that you said. So we know that that's happening. It is normal now. So a lot of people are like, well, I'm not going to negotiate. That seems like it's negotiating in bad faith to not have it written. This is just one of the cycles that the deans will only be signing off on things if it's final. And so the department chair doesn't want to go back and forth with you, back and forth with the dean. They want to do everything and get it to the dean and then they're done. So that's why they're doing that way, but it does make people nervous. And again, if you have something like that and you're like nervous about it, just give us a call. We can help talk you through it. And then the last thing we have seen a little bit is less wiggle room for asks, that people are like take it or leave it type of negotiations. There is some wiggle room still, and we have seen people be quite successful. But there also is, it seems like the offers that we have seen have been really weird, where there's an offer from a school that wasn't your top school, but the offer is really good. And then there's an offer that you thought the school was a little bit better, and the salary alone wasn't at all what you thought it was going to be. And so we've definitely seen that the offers tend to be not as consistent this year as they've been in the past year, that organizations that we thought would give you a really offer are giving you an offer that is like meh, and organizations that you didn't ever consider, they're not an R1, they're an R2, are giving you an offer that you can't refuse. So we've definitely seen that trend happening in 2026, and I anticipate that we'll continue to see that over the next month. Okay, so when you do get an offer for a faculty position, it's typically after you have gone on an on-site visit. So you've had your virtual visit, your virtual interview, likely back in December-ish, and then they brought you in for that in-person visit, that day long, where you've given a seminar, you maybe gave a chalk talk, you met with students and all that stuff. And then you may or may not have a second in-person interview. Those ones are a little 50-50 on if they're doing a second in-person interview at all. But at that point, you'll probably get a phone call to start thinking about giving you an offer. They'll probably be giving you a deadline and a quick turnaround time on your wish list of supply list before an offer is made. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of slides. That's usually verbal first, so they'll call you up and say, "Dear Dr. Somerville, we'd like to offer you a faculty position," and you do your happy dance. They do expect you at this point in the United States to do a little bit of give and take, to do some negotiations. We have heard that in Europe, they are not allowing you to do a lot of negotiations. It's a take it or leave it kind of offer. And we understand that. They might still be able to ask a little bit, but we've heard a little bit that in Europe, you just got to take the offer that's kind of come. This typically will come from the department chair or maybe the dean. Every once in a while, it'll come through human resources, but for the most part, it's through the department chair or dean. It's not a done deal till everything is in writing, all the paperwork is completed, and everything is signed. We have had very few offers rescinded. Last time we saw offers rescinded was in 2025, a little bit, when right this time last year, we saw a couple of offers rescinded because of NIH budgets and lack of grant support and things like that. We do not usually see that. The only other time I see offers get rescinded is when you're not very nice to people, and they're like, "No, we don't want this person anymore." So as long as you're, nice to people as you go through the process, it's very unlikely that you will get an offer rescinded. It is very unlikely that you will get an offer rescinded if you ask for more, whether that's more money, more startup, more space, whatever. They're not going to rescind an offer because you asked. They're expecting you to ask for the most place. So when you think about your wish list, that supply list that you have, we don't have any good examples. We're working on kind of looking at a couple of good examples of that, and that's something Emily and I are going to be building for a future talk. But here's what we know a wish list looks like. And we have heard that wish lists have been shared on things like Future PI Slack or within your own peer groups. When you ask for a wish list, the first thing you have to know is what the department or the school already has. So, for example, you don't want to suggest they have build you a new 600 megahertz NMR machine if they just bought one in the past year or so, right? So you kind of need to know what's already there at the institution and what you need in order to do your work. And then of the things that you need, especially big ticket items like a microscope or something like that, is that something that you'll share with the department? And so hopefully they'll help to defer the costs because lots of people will use that new piece of equipment. You typically divide that wish list into about a couple of major categories. The first is major equipment, things that really puts out a capital outlay, like an NMR, a microscope. Last year, I had two folks on the faculty market, and the space didn't have a tissue culture, and so they needed money for a new tissue culture room. So those kinds of things that are cost a lot of money for the institution. That's an ask first. The second category is your general setup costs. So how much is it going to buy all the pipette men or all the computers that you need in order to do your work, or you know, the Kim wipes and all the rest of those things. Access to software, etc. And then there's recurring costs. This is also could be where your software is. How much is a graduate student going to cost you at that institution, or a tech, or a postdoc? Putting in money for your travel, right? You know you're going to go to AACR or some other fancy meeting. How much will that cost you in your first year? If you are doing clinical work, how much is it going to cost you to do patient recruitment? So if you need a nurse, or if you need a recruitment person, etc. You need animal use, animal cages, and animal care. How much is that going to cost? All of those things are on a different part of your wish list. It really has to be tailored towards the position that you're going for, and also the institution that you're going to. You want to be as comprehensive and realistic as you need for here. This is where you need to ask for almost everything you need. When I've been talking to friends of mine who are on faculty at Pitt, they say this should be really comprehensive, but not and realistic in the fact that you want to show that you know exactly what you need in order to do your science. You want it to prove to them that you're not like a space cadet and asking for too little, or asking for way too much, so that it is a realistic component of what you need to get your group going. You can also, to make sure that you understand what realism is, you can put things in there that says this is a must-have, right? I need pipette men, and it's nice to have something, a robot, right, or something like that. So being to put in there must-haves versus could-haves helps to show that realistic things. Should you shoot for the moon? Okay, maybe close to it, but don't overshoot the moon, so to speak, because you really don't want to show that you're untethered with reality on what you actually need. You know, don't ask for stuff that you're never going to use. And we all know every single one of our research groups has stuff that we ordered that no one has ever even touched. So don't be that person, at least not the first year. Okay, that's your typical wish list. And then you have to think more about the offer as a whole. So there's you made your wish list, you've given it to them, and now they're going to come back with a full offer. Okay, we are going to give you this amount of startup, we're going to give you this kind of things. And so now you have to think about a couple of things. The first is fit. Is this a place you actually want to work? And is this a place you actually want to live? What's the quality of the offer? Is it good or is it bad? And then is there anything else you have going, right? Are there other offers or other options that you really want to look at when you're balancing it towards the offer that's in hand? And then there's some possibilities here. Bad fit, bad offer. Like this place is wackadoo and the offer is really bad. Do you take it, right? Sometimes it might be your only option. And so you kind of take it knowing that you may not be there forever, that you'll stay there, maybe get tenure and then move on, or maybe continue to look or something like that. But that's the only offer you got on the table. The next one is bad fit and an amazing offer, right? So they've given you a salary that you just can't believe, and the startup package is great, but you can already tell that this department has problems. Do you take it? And there are pros and cons to whether you take that or not. What you're really hoping for is a great fit and a great offer, right? Like the startup is great, the salary is great, the location is great, the offer is everything about this is amazing. And then you're like, yes, please let me sign, but always ask for more money first. And then the last one is it's a great fit. You can tell that this place is amazing, but the offer isn't what you wanted it to be. And then you have to decide, how much do you want to just accept it, because you know you'll be really happy there, even if you're not able to buy everything you want, or you know you'll be happy there, but they're hampering your ability to do science so much that you actually can't take it. So we'll go through each one of these a little bit more, kind of talk about them as we talk about the different components of the offer, and just those are the four that I typically think about. Okay, so when we think about stuff to consider when you're getting that offer, it's definitely location, right? Is that a place you're going to want to live when you're going to raise your children, if you have them or want to have them? Is it a place where your spouse or other person? How close is it to your family in order to hop a plane to go home? For example, I've had a couple of folks who were visiting fellows who would only go to locations that had direct flights back to their houses, to their countries of origin, because they just like, I can't do so many flights. If I have to get home, I have to get home. My husband and I often looked at it and said we were only going to stay on this side of the Mississippi because it just made more sense for us to get to our parents and things like that. The next factor to consider in that fit is there support to establish your research, your teaching, and your clinical programs, whatever that is, then what that means to you. So do you have the support? Do you have the support of the dean? Is there a mentoring committee that will meet to help you get through your first grants? Is there support for you to navigate into the department, and what do they do to help new faculty integrate and things like that? A lot of us think it's just salary, benefits, startup package, etc. But as you can see, it's so much more than that. Are these students ones you want to work with? I actually recently helped someone, and that was one of the big deciding factors. He had one R1 school and one R2 school. The R1 school seemed to be better, right? They were offering him more support to do the type of science. But the students at the R2 school were so excited to do the type of research that he was probably going to be more productive at an R2 school, because the students were going to be the types of students that were going to make his program successful. You may get one of these offers and be like, no, thank you. Literally, absolutely, no, thank you. And that's okay. So you should decline as soon as possible. Be respectful. Say, thank you very much. I don't think this is a good fit for me. This is not a good move for me or for my family. I have other offers that provide other opportunities. You do not need to give them a whole dissertation of why you're saying no. Just a couple of sentences and then move your life on. You will not be destroying ties because they've made you an offer and you have decided not to accept it. You do not have to take every offer that comes your way. So when I think about the nature of the job and what it is, and to make sure it's a good fit for you, the things that I ask you to think about is this really what you want to do, right? Is it allowing you to do the type of science, the type of clinical work, the type of patients? Does it allow you to do the type of work that you want to do? Does it have the right balance of responsibilities? So that could be the ratio of research to teaching, or clinic to teaching, or clinic to research, right? So what are the ratios, and does that ratio match for you? I've talked to a lot of you and you're like, I have no desire to do teaching. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. But does the job that you're getting offered allow you to not have those teaching responsibilities if you don't want them? Is this the right level of competitiveness and intensity? So is it an institution where it is go, 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 and it's got a, lights don't turn off type of institution? Or is it one that has a pace that fits you better? I had a different person go to an R2 institution who was really skeptical of going to an R2 institution. And he ended up really liking it because the competitiveness and the intensity of how to do science was not what it was if he would have chosen an R1 institution. And that ended up being the right fit for him and his family. And then in the end, will it allow you to achieve your career goals and your scientific goals? Because those are really, and your personal goals, right? All three of those are huge questions on how happy you will be as you choose that fit for that institution. So when you're thinking about, will you have the right resources? Do you have the space to do your work? Do they have the appropriate office space versus bench space versus clinical space? And do you have access to the critical equipment and core facilities? One time I was helping someone do a job negotiation at an institution where her scientific research was all about mouse studies. And the institution that she was getting an offer from didn't have a vivarium, and she had to go next door to the university next door to access their vivarium. That wasn't going to actually support her in being successful in her work because she was going to spend all her time going back and forth between the two institutions. And so do they have everything that you need in order to successfully complete your science? And then will you have access to the right kind of money, the right kind of students, clinical samples, data sets, teaching assistants, lab preps, all those things that here at the NIH we take for granted. The things that many of you who have not, all of you probably, many of you, probably all but 99% of you did not do your PhDs here at the NIH. And you probably came here and are shocked and awed that you don't have to make your own buffers. You don't have to make your own media and all the rest of that stuff. You might have to do that when you move to your own institutions. And will you have all the support in order to do that? You may have to pour your own gels again. I don't know, maybe nobody pours gels anymore. It doesn't matter where you are. But, remembering how to pour an SDS page, I don't know, maybe that's going to be in your future. You can tell me no. You can tell me everyone buys gels now, and I'd be happy to hear that. And then will you receive the appropriate mentorship and guidance, right, to be successful to get yourself to tenure? Okay, so questions you should be asking during the negotiation. Maybe you need renovations for the office space or lab space. So are there funds for renovations and office furniture, right? So if you need to buy a new office chair, who's paying for that? Is it coming out of your startup or is it coming out of departmental budgets? Is the layout of the space appropriate? How close is your office to the research group? If it's in another building, that's bad because, I don't know about you guys, but when I was in the lab and the boss wasn't close, we weren't quite as productive as when the boss was close. So just saying, be as close as you can. And if it's a wet lab, you should expect about 600 to 1,000 square feet of research space starting out. Your startup needs to cover the equipment, supplies, staff, students, travel, computers. We already talked about that. Sometimes it's a lump sum that you can do as you want over 5 years. Sometimes it's divided where you have to use this amount of money in first year, this amount of money in second year, and this amount of money, et cetera. And you should ask, what happens if I don't spend all of it? Can I roll it over to the next year? Like I've already mentioned, expensive equipment, the scope that you might need can be negotiated separately. And your goal is to have enough money to run your program without a grant for 2 to 3 years. That's your goal. So that you can get there, figure out where they hid the bathrooms for a year, and then start writing your grants. Because remember, you're probably going to write a grant in year 1. It may or may not get funded. And even if you got funded in year 1, that money's not coming until like middle of year 2 to end of year 2. So you need enough money in your startup to cover you until your grants start kicking in. You need to ask about your responsibilities, the teaching, clinical responsibilities, and or service responsibilities. So sitting on other people's committees, sitting on committees as a whole, whatever that looks like in your field. So hopefully you'll get none at first, maybe except for the clinicians in the group who will probably get clinical time as you kind of come in. But or if you're going to a teaching specific institution where teaching will be in your first year. But if you're going to an institution that is an R1 institution, you might be able to punt your teaching responsibilities until year 2. You should ask how much input do you have into the duties that you have. So how much input into which courses you're going to teach, how often you go to clinic, or how often you serve on different committees. And then especially for the clinicians in the group, making sure that you have structured time so that you can make research progress. We've heard a lot over the years for our clinician scientists of how challenging it is to protect your time to still do research. If you are a clinical scientist, a clinician scientist, and you are looking at negotiating, I'm probably going to send you to Joyce over in the clinical center, who has much more experience with this. It's more her expertise. You need distinct expertise in clinical negotiations, and that's not me. But I know people who can do it. You should ask questions about the tenure process while you're there. So what does tenure look like? How are you, what's expected of you to get tenure? And all the different categories, right? So that's going to be your research categories, your teaching categories, your clinical practice, and other service. And what do the reviews and things like that, how do all of those components go into your tenure package? What is the timeline? And have people deferred? What have they deferred for? Or can you go up early? So if you're doing really well, do people go up early, or does everybody wait for the year 6? And how does that work? You should ask questions about the process for getting tenure. You know, is it first in the department, then the school, then the university? Like who does it go to? How many steps are there? And who's involved in all those decision making? And what kinds of questions are they asking for that? You should also know what tenure means at that institution. You know, about 5-10 years ago, there was a very large conversation about tenure across the United States. I have seen that tamped down over the years, that we're not talking about this tenure thing quite as much unless you are in Texas or Florida. Texas and Florida still are having lots of conversations about what tenure means and how that means for the rest of your life. And you should ask those questions though. What does tenure mean at this institution? And have there been conversations about tenure here at the institution, or perhaps even within the state or the system that you're in? Right, so like if you go like to the UNC system, how does that differ from one of the satellite campuses versus the main campus? Salary. Okay, so salary is much to do about salary. And the first question you need to know about salary is hard versus soft money. So is your money coming from the institution, like state funding, or is the money coming from soft money, meaning everything comes from your grants? Okay, so is the money 100%, or is it all up to you and your grants? The other question is it 9 months of salary or 12 months of salary? So a lot of times you'll be offered a 9-month salary that's basically the academic school year. And then you'll have to find funds, usually through your grants, to carry you over for those 3 months of the summer. Or it could be a 12-month appointment that the funds are all year long. This is the one that I have seen a lot of discussions about over the past year, of 9 months versus 12 months and how you negotiate. My biggest thing here is that just for you to be really crystal clear about what they're actually offering. And when you're comparing offers, you kind of almost have to do it divide everything out and do it per month, or multiply the 9-month one up to 12 months. Otherwise, you're like comparing apples and oranges. So just be very cautious to do that. If they do offer you a 9-month appointment, you should be asking questions about what faculty do in the summer, how do they cover that summer salary, and are there any other realistic ways for you to get summer support in case you don't get grants. They may have a bonus system. I haven't seen quite so much of that recently. If they do have a base plus a bonus, what is the bonus tied to? Typically it's to grants or papers or things like that, but you should know what that looks like. The last one is one of the things that happens, especially at Research One, R1 institutions, is there is a sliding timeline where how much of your salary needs to come from your grants. So it might be in year one, 100% of your money is hard money and is given to you by the state. But by year 5, the institution is expecting that 50% of your salary comes from your grants. And it typically ramps up a little bit year to year to year. You need to really look at that scale of how much money that you have to bring in from your grants. Because if you had an offer that was 100% hard money for the rest of your life at that institution, that might be $100,000 versus $150,000, but by year 2, 50% of that needs to come from your grants, you might have a different conversation in your head about which one of those is more attractive for you to take. And only you can answer that. Only you have the risk tolerance to know how much money you're happy with bringing from your grants. So where do you get the data for what salaries should look like? The first is you should use more than one database. There's lots of different databases out there. One is the AAMC salary survey for academic positions. We do have access to this here at the NIH. I have to go get their most recent copy, but the clinical center does have access to the most recent AAMC salary survey. If it is a state institution, those salaries are actually posted on the interwebs, on the internet. So you could go to Google, type in whichever university, so University of Maryland, and you can type in a new faculty member, like someone who has just got a position last year. Well, actually, usually it's about 2 to 3 years behind. So pick somebody who's been there for 2 to 3 years, and you can go see what all the faculty in that department are making just by doing Google searches. And I highly recommend doing that. You can use your NIH and your university network, so asking other people about starting salaries at different places. Emily found some really good data on Future PI Slack of what people are getting, how long, what the original offer was, what they offered back, and what the final offer was. And so use all those things that are out there. You also have to account for geographical area. Living in DC, where you're going to get $100,000 goes very differently than if you're living in Oklahoma City. And so know what the cost of living calculators are. There's a lot out there. Just Google cost of living. And then also make sure that you're factoring all your personal needs in. Maybe it's daycare, maybe it's elder care, maybe it's making sure you have enough money to fly home back and forth, all those things. What type of house do you want or not house? My friend, actually she's a former postdoc who went to Pitt. She's like, I don't want to buy a house, so I needed to look at apartment, how much that was going to cost us and stuff like that. And then you have to decide what your value means to you and what is an absolute no-go, what's ideal, which is woohoo, and what's okay, fine, I'll take that. And only you and your family unit can decide what is no-go, ideal, and acceptable. When you're thinking about the whole package of what you're getting offered as a faculty member, it's more than just the salary. There's lots of other components to your offer. And some of these benefit packages are stuff that you've never actually thought about before, but they should be in your package. They're typically not negotiable, but you need to know what they are. The first is health insurance. You know, if you're an IRTA, CERTA, or visiting fellow here, you've never had a choice in health insurance, so to speak. And so this will be likely the first time that you have to know what the difference is between all the different plans. And so you can ask HR before you take the position what plans are available and how much that's going to cost you, because it's going to, you know, you're going to have every month, you're going to have to pay part of those premiums in order to have the health insurance. If you have a domestic partner, do they offer same-sex benefits, etc.? Is there vision? I just put them both into one word. Is there vision and dental? And how much does that cost? A lot of times vision and dental are not covered by your employer, and they're fully, if you want those health insurances, they're fully covered by you. Other types of insurance that come once you move into this next realm of life is it's very often that they offer you life insurance and also disability insurance, like AFLAC, right? So there is often some disability and life insurance that you have to pay into. Some of it's provided, some of it you have to pay into in order, so you have to know what your costs are for those insurance plans. There also is, probably for the first time in your life, retirement, yay, right? And so you need to know what kind of vehicles they use. Do they use TIAA CREF? Do they use a 401k? What kinds of things are there? You need to know what it means to vest. This means how long do you have to be in there, in that retirement system, before the money that the university has put into the retirement system for you is yours. For example, when I was at the New York Academy of Sciences, they matched, but I don't get to own that money until the money's been in there for 10 years or something like that, right? I can't take the money out right away. You need to know what percentage the employer match. It really varies. So like for example, like here in the government, I think they automatically put in 2%, but if I put in 5%, they'll match me to 5%. So that is money above and beyond. And my last employer, they matched my contribution up to 10%. So you need to know that because it means how much money you have to put in for retirement, probably along the side. This is usually not your only vehicle that you do for retirement. You'll probably need a secondary retirement plan. Usually at this point, I say, once you get your first real job, I highly recommend trying to find a financial advisor. They can be found through your banks. They're all over the place. Because you're going to have to like consider lots of different things around your insurance rates, your retirement rates, all these things. And there's stuff that, I don't know about you, my PhD is in biochemistry. I need somebody else to look at all that kind of stuff. Other things that you look at, but again, are typically not things you negotiate on, but they're really important parts of your package for you to understand what the whole offer looks like, are vacation leave. What does that look like? How does it increase? How much time do you get off? Do you get, if you stayed longer, do you get more days? What's the difference between sick leave and vacation leave? Is there a difference? If you were to leave that institution, are they going to pay out your vacation days, or those use or lose? Some places also give you holidays. You should know what holidays are available. Here in the federal government, we get a wicked amount. It's like I don't know, 11 or 13 now holidays. That's not common, but you should know what happens between, like, say, Christmas and New Year. Does the entire university go on holiday and nobody's there? And what does that all look like? They will probably offer you a relocation benefit, and this is something you can likely negotiate. You need to know if that is an all expenses paid, or is it a moving allowance? And so is it just they take care of everything, or do they give you $8,000 and say, figure it out? Do they have any assistance with housing? Do they help you find housing? Do they help you pay for housing? If you're moving to a place like New York City, faculty housing is often part of your package because it's so expensive to live in New York City. So what does housing look like at the institution you're going to? And is there any help for your job, your spouse, or your partner? I want to point out one thing real quick. If you do get relocation benefits and they pay you extra, they give you $8,000, that $8,000 is considered taxable income. So when it comes time to do your taxes, you may have to put your relocation benefits in and pay tax on them. They may offer you tuition and assistance. It really varies by the position, the university, how far can you go, etc. For example, my friend who works at University of Maryland, her son can go to any institution within the University of Maryland system, and she gets 50% off his tuition. When my husband worked at Columbia, Jason could have gone free to Columbia if he would have gotten in when we were there, or any Ivy League school was 50% off. So you kind of need to know what that tuition assistance looks like, and if it's just for you or if it's for extended members of your family. There may be childcare or childcare subsidies, on-site childcare, off-site childcare. What do they recommend? If that's important to you, you need to know about it. Because waiting lists are brutal. You guys are all here at the NIH. I think the waiting list at NIH daycare is still scary. And then sometimes there's bonuses to sign you in. I don't see bonuses very often in faculty. They're much more common in government or private sector jobs, but every once in a while I'll see a few of you get a bonus, but don't expect that one, I'll tell you that. If you have multiple offers, that's awesome. Oops, wait, I didn't split the slide. A lot of times you can use this for playing people off of each other. So if you have an offer from place A and you're waiting for place B, you can tell place B, hey, I'm waiting, I have an offer from A, can you speed your stuff along? You can ask for other people to speed up their timelines for more time to decide, but you may or may not get the extra time that you need in order to get that offer in place. And I think that's one of the hardest parts about this is usually you get the offer from the place that wasn't your favorite and you're waiting for your favorite place to come back to you. And you don't know whether favorite place is going to give you an offer, but you have to make decision about non-favorite place before you get there. And it is really hard and it's really stressful. So if you end up in one of those situations, when you end up in that situation, come see me and we'll talk it out. When you get an offer and you thought about it, you have 4 responses. The first is to stall. Right? Express enthusiasm, tell you, and you should do this every single time. Whether or not you're going to take the offer or not take the offer, stall them for at least a week, right? Express enthusiasm for the offer, but ask for time to consider and take time to prepare anything in the negotiation you think is important. Give me a second on this. I'll give you some scripts in the next couple of slides on how to ask for more time and how to respond for your stall. The second is you should then negotiate, and then you should accept or reject it. I always think you should negotiate on things such as your startup, your salary, or your start date. That's a huge one you can actually do. But I always think you should try at least a little bit, especially here in the United States. So what is negotiable? Your salary, your startup, where and how much space you have for both your research and also your office. Your start date, this is one of the biggest ones we've been working on moving for negotiations. Capital purchases and who pays for it and how much comes out of your startup versus your grants versus the institution paying for it. Your teaching load, your clinical load, all negotiable. moving expenses, and potentially a position or help for your spouse or partner. This is absolutely the time that you start talking about what your spouse or your partner needs in order to be successful. When you're thinking about negotiating your salary, you really have to do your homework and get your data in line before you go. So what salary is actually, do you think is acceptable? I know what it is for, it's about 120 to 150 at most R1 institutions, but it really changes depending on geography, field, degree. For example, our physicians should be thinking over the 200s. But it really depends on who you are. Oh, and if you're going to a primarily undergraduate institution, your salary is probably going to be $70,000 to $90,000. You probably will take a pay cut to go take that job. You have to know what you're willing to work for. Things that you'll hear is, if I pay you what you're asking for, you will earn more than other recent hires, or I don't have any flexibility, or we're offering all of our new hires the same non-negotiable salary. If you get one of these, you can try to push back, but you might want to then try to negotiate on more startup or more, how much more you can bring in from your grant or other types of things. I have seen these three answers from the institutions come much more commonly over the past couple of years. Definitely last year, I was helping 2 postdocs do a negotiation with Purdue, and Purdue offered them the exact same thing, and they would not move on salary. That's okay, as long as you know, and if you know what your go, no-go decision is on that salary. I keep saying stipend. On your startup packages, what can you negotiate? Things like upfront purchases, consumables, the cost of personnel. One of the things I've seen really been successful for a lot of people in faculty negotiations is them asking for the department to cover everything for their graduate students, so tuition, insurance, and stipend for X number of years while you get your grants up and off the ground. So how long will they cover a graduate student, or will they give you a technician or something like that? I have seen personnel be one of the best places to negotiate startup packages. You really have to understand how much it costs to do your work at that institution. So it's perfectly fine to reach out to the administrators, the deans, other faculty, etc., to ask how much is a graduate student here? How much is a mouse cage? How much is IT support, and all the things that you need in order to feel like you're successful. You definitely need to do some research. And if you have yet to get an offer, this is the perfect time to go stalk Future PI Slack to ask people about their negotiations, etc. Because you really want to make sure that you understand why you're asking for more things, whether that's people, money, resources, whatever. It's really important that you have all the information in your head and that you're not going into this blind. Because if you're going into it blind, it makes it really difficult. You haven't done enough due diligence. So now is the time to do your due diligence through all the resources that are available for you. You'll start by telling about your enthusiasm. You'll then go towards the area that you want to negotiate, and then be very clear with what you want and follow up with things like what I heard us say. Listen really carefully for responses and take notes. This is wicked stressful. Some people can really successfully do this by email, but most people, I'd say 90% of the people, this is done on the telephone or Teams now, or Zoom, or insert your favorite video conference call. And so it's really hard because you feel really guilty asking for more. And it feels like you're ungrateful for the position that they've been offering for you. But this is part of adulting in the United States, is asking for what you need and being really specific with what you need. Here's some great verbs that you can use, right? Some words you can use: to be productive, I need; to be the best teacher or the best clinician possible, I need. Be really, really clear about what you absolutely need here versus what you want. So here's some responses, and we will make sure you get this slide deck so you can cut, copy, and paste all of these, right? Thank you very much. I'm very excited about the position. I'm confident with a couple of modifications that we can come to an agreement, etc. I look forward to speaking with you more, right? So you're just kind of getting it started. Here's another one with a little bit more details. I understand you will not be able to provide funds to purchase a new confocal, but I appreciate the access to the microscope in Dr. Blah Blah Blah's lab, and that you'll be an additional $35,000 in startup costs so I can upgrade the software, right? So this one's a little bit more specific as you're kind of move yourself through the negotiation. If you're going to ask for more time, they probably, you should ask for how long you want, right? This person wanted until mid-April. They got back that April 7th would work for them, right? But this is how you would word asking for more time to make your decision. You can ask for questions about modifying your teaching load, right? I'm really excited to set up my lab and establish my research program with the startup package you offer. However, I have some concerns about the teaching load, blah, 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 blah. I'm requesting that we decrease my teaching load in year 1 from 3 to 2 courses. Perfectly fine to ask for. Just another one. Okay, just wanted to give you lots of different things. Pick and choose from these what works best for you. As we wrap up, and we have lots of times for questions, so this is the perfect time to start popping your questions into the chat, and I will start reading questions. It's unusual. This is some unusual times right now. I never thought that we would see unusual times from the pandemic followed up so closely with the unusual times that we're in now. But negotiations are still happening, and it's definitely what we've seen both in Future PI Slack and also through our faculty job search group. We see some people be very successful this year, so it is happening. Be assertive but reasonable, right? Ask for what you need to be successful. This is it's really important. If you need help with this, oh, don't email Sharon, email me. I'll change that slide before I send it on. I help with negotiations all the time. It's one of my most favorite things to do, and I am never too busy to help you do job negotiations. I will always make time for you. So please, please, please feel free to email me and get advice from lots of people, not just me, but other mentors, etc. This is wicked stressful. If you need help with any of this, let us know. Our well-being advisors can help navigate the stress of all this. And I'm here for you to make sure that you feel like you're successful as you navigate this last phase of your time here at NIH. Okay, I'm serious about that. People think I'm like not serious, but I really am. I want to be here for you. Okay, so Emily's posted stuff about Future PI Slack. We have time for questions. Look at us. What kinds of questions do you have for me? You can also just unmute yourself if you're like me and you're too lazy to type.
Yes, so I've given you all the ability to unmute. Yeah, go ahead, Charles.
So this is not really a question for me, but I know that there's some internationals. The whole visa situation for negotiations. Have you seen any of that? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Charles. For the most part, and I was actually asking a lot of my friends this question this past weekend. I went to the National Postdoc Association meeting, and I asked specific questions around, are you actually hiring new faculty who need visas? Everyone told me that they have been telling faculty search committees not to bring visa situations into their decision on whether to make an offer or not make an offer. So that was encouraging. I also know that H-1Bs, if you are coming from within the United States, are perfectly okay at the current moment. Like they're fine. It's when you're coming from outside the United States that H-1B thing is wicked expensive. And that's even held up in the courts, but I know it freaked a couple of institutions out where they were worried about H-1Bs. I know that Texas and Florida, 2 states in the United States, are actually not doing H-1Bs at all. But all of my friends that I talked to who are at those institutions said that they're working on O visas for the most part for folks who are interested in going to Texas or Florida. But I think if Texas and Florida might be quite difficult as a whole for folks. I understand that the visa situation is nerve-wracking. But it doesn't sound like it's the hugest barrier right now to long-term success. It's tough, but it's not the worst barrier that I was fearing it was going to be.
Thank you, Laurie. I've seen some positions where they deliberately say that they won't pay the 100,000 fee. And to
Correct,
any
but
international, sorry?
If you're in the United States, you don't have to worry about that.
Correct. I would just tell any internationals to submit an I-485 or some kind of green card application, because you can get a work authorization and still start your faculty position if you can, and that separates it from the institution. But yeah, I don't want to hog the conversation. There's some questions in the chat.
And also, additionally, you may all want to talk with an immigration attorney. Just putting it out there. All right. Are there major differences in the interview negotiation process for non-PI positions? Absolutely. You're not having any startup. You're not having any, it's much more typically with HR and less with the PI. So there are lots of different things for non-PI positions. And I highly recommend the other talk, which is, it looks like it's just for industry jobs, but it's everything but faculty jobs. I hope that helps, Andrew. All right. So even if a position said open till filled, is it too late to submit an application in December or January? No, not this year. This year, like Charles says in his comment, we have seen things open up really late and take applications much longer. So I would not consider that it is closed. I hope that helps, Minkyung. Get everybody? Charles, I think you asked earlier around the time I was talking about the tenure process, and you said, can I elaborate? Can you, is that still
Yes.
relevant? And what did you mean?
So those conversations you mentioned in Texas and Florida and what tenure means, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, okay. So Texas has been trying to get rid of tenure for about a decade or 15 years now. And so it's really unclear what that means because they haven't actually put it through, but they were just talking about there is no such thing as tenure. Like you are no longer, the institution was no longer going to allow you to keep your job forever, especially if you were not continuing to add to the university, bring in dollars, et cetera. And so I don't know right now where that conversation ended up, but it has been a conversation where they weren't going to do tenure at all in place, definitely Texas. So that would be in the University of Texas system and the Texas A&M University system. Both of them were having that conversation.
Thank you, Laurie. And I've actually seen tenure track advertisements where I actually asked and there was no tenure in that job. So it's a bit misleading. For some institutions that they say this is tenure track position, then they call you and you talk to them and they're like, well, actually this is a 3-year extensions position. And so the word tenure doesn't actually mean tenure for some of those institutions, which for me was a huge red flag because I think it's a bit misleading, but I don't know. Have you seen this before?
I think this is going to this thing. I think we're saying the same thing actually in different ways, Charles, where this is this part of this new world order of what tenure means. And so they may call it a tenure track because the intention is you will stay there forever, right? That it's just like it, but it doesn't have tenure, so it doesn't have the protections of tenure. So for me, that also would be a red flag, but it might be something that each one of you will have to decide what that is. And I think I would also ask questions to the department. Well, then what does that mean? Is this new? Is tenure being taken away across the institution? And this is just now what's happening? I think I would need more, I would need more questions to that institution to see what protections you would have for long-term stability.
Thank you.
Oh, this is a good question. What do we talk about when they take us out to lunch and dinner during an on-site interview? I would talk about, that's a great question. I would talk about, so what do you like most about this department or the institution or the area that you're living in? What do you like least? You're trying to get them to, at lunch and dinner, during an on-site interview, you're trying to figure out if this is a place you actually want to go. Are these people you want to hang out with every day? And is this a place you want to live? Lunch will probably be more likely to be with graduate students. And you want to know in that, are these the types of graduate students that you actually can do your work with? We talked a lot about both of these, I think, in our interviewing workshop, and Emily can make sure that you have access to that one. Startup funds for computational PIs. It's different, right? It's not going to be as much, but you still need access to computers. You need to make sure they have a BioWolf equivalent, right? So that you have the computing power that you need in order to do that work. And the types of computers, the money to do the computers, the IT support for the types of computers that you're going to look at for that type of work, right? So my husband's computational, and he needs the top of the line Mac versus, Emily, he has a Mac that, it's lucky we plug it in, right? Because it's just different for the level of type of computer that you need. So do you have enough computers? Do you have access to the resources? And do you have the computing power and the facilities in order to do that? So it will probably be less. There might be some examples of that in future PI Slack so that you can see exactly how much different other people are asking for. How to negotiate the job with your previous teaching and research experience in an open rank faculty. I don't know what you mean by that. Gonna need more help there. You can either just unmute yourself and ask, or try typing again. I'm not exactly sure what you mean.
Hi, Lori, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So I was just wondering, like, it's open rank faculty, so you can either be an assistant professor, associate professor, or something about that. So how can we negotiate which state? Like, will you be an assistant professor, associate, or that thing?
I think if you have not yet been a faculty member, they're not going to make you an associate faculty. They're only going to bring you in an associate faculty if you already have tenure someplace else.
I mean, like, do they consider the experience in US or outside US also would be fine with that?
So it's very likely so is this for a US institution? So it's a US institution first? Or is it a international institution?
Yeah, I have been working as a faculty position nearly 10 years, but not inside US, it's outside. Yeah.
They're probably still not going to give you associate professor.
Okay.
It's still probably going to be assistant professor, even if you were a faculty, unless you had tenure abroad, they're probably not going to consider that.
Yeah, I have 10 years experience there, but still it's outside. Yeah.
Not 10 years, tenure.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
I
Thank
know,
you.
right? They're almost the same word.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, Charles, you want to add on to that or a different question?
Yeah, so I'd heard exactly what you'd heard, Laurie, but there was somebody from my division who got a tenured position after leaving NIH
Whoa.
at an R2. So
Wow. That's
they managed to negotiate. I think they got some intramural grants and they managed to negotiate. This was an R2, of course, but they managed to negotiate for an associate position. I
that is
don't know if
impressive.
this is I think this is a rare example, but
Yeah.
and I think this would mostly happen at an R2, right? I don't think an R1 would do this, right?
Agreed. Agreed.
So I think it really depends. There's also people who are research scholars here who have intramural research scholars program who have, for example, staff.
Yes.
So they will try to negotiate. So I think there's always an exception, but in general, yeah, I've heard what you've heard.
Yeah. I hope that all of you are the exception. But we should set our expectations. Okay, does the expiration of startup funds vary among institutions? It does. There is no standard timeline to use that startup funds. Typically, it's up till tenure. But I have seen some startup funds you only get startup funds for 3 years and you have to use them. I've seen them 5 years, I've seen them 6 years, I've seen it all over the place. So you really have I get what you're saying, but for you have, that's why you have to like tailor it to the institution that you're going to. Yes, it is. It can be negotiable. One of the things I've seen is, especially for the people who got like 3 years, that they negotiated that they could, if they didn't spend it all, that they could still use it in potentially year 4 or year 5. Yes, I have seen that negotiable. You guys have good questions today. And you type really fast. All right, I don't see anything else really coming in. You know how to find me. You know where we are. We are here for you. We really want to make sure that you are successful in this. Anything we can do to give you a hand, please let us know, okay? You're never bothering me. I love helping. And I hope all of you have a fabulous rest of your day. It is officially spring, according to the Capital Weather Gang. So I hope that the weather starts pretending it's spring because it is cold. All right. Bye, everybody. Nice to see you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.